Hello friends, welcome to another unboxing video here on Collecting Elton. I've had this footage for a while now. This was filmed in July, back when I was doing, I thought anyway, too many unboxing videos of this particular style, so I stopped for a while. Most, if not all, those videos were of me unboxing gift boxes I received from my friend Michael. About two of which were just CDs, and one of which contained CDs, SACDs, some vinyl singles, and other items. Left over from that whole period was this video, which shows me unboxing two large boxes of vinyl, and one more video, which shows me unboxing CDs, which I'll get around to showing here sooner or later. This video, again, shows me and the two boxes of vinyl LPs. And yeah, it's a little longer than my videos tend to be these days, so go, get yourself a drink, some eggnog, or whatever your thing is. Sit back and enjoy. Anyway, so you can see that already I've sliced open this first box, and Michael's expertly packed these vinyl records in bundles. This was a few months ago, and I still have mountains of bubble wrap sitting around here. I can't complain, though. I think we've probably all had experiences where someone didn't pack records properly, and the result was painful to see. And right away, first one is Madman Across the Water. It's an MCA copy, I can tell by the indicator in the lower left-hand corner there. And I can tell it's probably a black rainbow copy and a reissue. I can't remember if this copy had its booklet or not hiding in the sleeve. I don't think it did. So many of these 1973 black rainbow Madmans have lost their gatefold booklets because I think the printer placed them in the gatefold but didn't glue them. Like they were glued in the original. And yes, it is a black rainbow copy. And that is Gloversville pressing. The typeface on the labels gives it away, and there's the marking right there. Okay. So in this case, it's a slash or a 1 and not a machine-stamped G. So this is an early black rainbow copy, probably pressed with the old Uni Records metal parts. I used to have a Canadian black rainbow Madman, but I sold it years ago and later regretted that, so I'm very happy to have that US copy in my collection. Alright, so let's jump ahead to the magical land called 1978, and I could tell immediately that this copy of A Single Man was one that I didn't already have, and a German copy specifically. The high gloss of the sleeve plus the white lettering at the top with no drop shadow. I could tell this was indeed an original German rocket. The cover has a sticker scar, but that's fine, I'll live. I had one of these in my Discogs cart about a year ago, and I was going to get it. I hesitated for a couple days, and, as happens so often, someone swiped it just before I decided finally that I was going to get it. But now I have one. And, a great shot of Elton sitting in his Jag here. That's a Jaguar XK140 FHC. I'm not some car expert. I just looked that up on the internet. Love that label. The LP itself appears to be in great shape. I should find the indicator here. Yep, there it is. 320, which is the run-out code for Polygram's pressing plant in Hanover, Germany. That plant would later belong to Universal and would become one of Europe's original phonogram pressing plants to survive into the 21st century. So I'm glad to have that. Next up, Victim of Love, 1979. I'm pointing at the MCA catalog number, so I know it's an MCA copy, probably a US MCA. Yep, I can tell because the Canadian MCA copies have additional text on the back. Now let's have a look at the LP. Okay, so this copy still has its inner, which is one of the glossy inners. Most US MCA copies had glossy inners, whereas the inners in the Canadian MCA copies had a matte finish to them. Oh, okay, so actually Michael's put the LP in a better inner sleeve here. I can tell from the typeface on the LP labels that this is a Pinckneyville pressing. And I think it's dawning on me here that this aftermarket inner is from Peter Dunne's Vinyl Museum, whose flagship store was actually up here in Canada, in Toronto. There was also a Peter Dunne Vinyl Museum in Florida, too, and maybe that's where Michael got this. Anyway, yeah, I think I found the Pinckneyville marking there in the runouts. I already had a Pinckneyville pressing of this, but not a stock copy. I have a promo. I'm happy to have this stock copy, too. And being a US copy, would have been cut by the great Brian Knapp Gardner. Next up, yes. As someone who's always looking for a superior copy of this album, I'm happy to see this, yet another copy of Red Strikes Back. Although I can tell right away that it's an MCA copy, it has the digital recording indicator in its lower left corner, and it's also CRC. CRC means Columbia House copy. It won't be a Terre Haute Columbia House copy. Terre Haute had long since closed by 1988. I wonder if it's, I think it's a Carrollton, Georgia pressing. Well, we'll see soon enough. The sleeve's in great shape, really great shape, actually. Now, the inner, does it have an inner? Looks like it, yeah. And if I recall, yeah, it too is in great shape. The LP should be an MCA Blue Rainbow, yep. And yeah, this is there's the CBS pressing ring. And where's that G? There it is. G for Georgia, as in Carrollton, Georgia. So it is, it's going to sound hot and loud and abrasive. I don't think I've actually played this copy yet, to tell you the truth. Well, I'll do that over the holidays sometime, maybe. All right, Caribou. I think I have about 200 vinyl copies of this one now, which is something, considering how it's, my least favorite of Elton's classic years albums, the studio albums anyway. The sleeve appears to be in great shape. The inner has been well loved, we'll put it that way. Now, there we go. I'm pointing at the MCA runout indicator. It says Gloversville, so it's a Gloversville pressing. And I didn't have an MCA Gloversville pressing of this one before, so I'm happy to have one now. Next is Don't Shoot Me. Now, if you're wondering why I'm handling it in this funny way, I could tell it had one of those plastic punch labels on it, which showed Michael's full name, and I want to give Michael some privacy, so I covered it up there. Okay, so already, the sleeve appears to be in decent shape. It's an MCA copy too. The booklet has been tipped or glued into the gatefold center here, so it may well be a Gloversville copy, as so many of the Gloversville copies shipped in sleeves whose booklets were glued. The Pinckneyville copies seem to have rarely shipped in sleeves with glued booklets. Okay, so it's a black rainbow. Whoa, that is a CBS pressing ring. So the LP was not pressed at any MCA plant, so I think it's a club copy. It must be a CRC Terre Haute copy. Where's that TH? There it is, TH. So that's TH for Terre Haute. All right, well, I didn't have a club copy of that before, so happy to have that. Next is the Fox. Wonderful. Can't have too many copies of this. Looks like it's a Geffen. The Geffen sleeves were slightly lighter than the Rocket sleeves, the UK Rocket sleeves anyway. And yes, it's a Geffen copy. One with a remainder notch in its top corner. Oh, well. And if I recall, this is a Europa disc pressing. Yeah, there's the label with the pressing ring. So lacquer's cut by Tim Young in the UK, but plated and pressed at Europa disc in New York City. And it's an early pressing, so pressed just a couple of months after Europa Disc began pressing vinyl in early 1981. So the vinyl here would have been imported virgin vinyl from Teldec in Germany. I have two other US Geffen copies of the Fox with the Europa Disc indicators in the runouts, but neither was actually pressed at Europa Disc. So this copy is certainly a welcome addition to my ever-growing collection of Fox copies on vinyl. Okay, so I showed this in an earlier video. This is actually where I saw this copy for the first time. This was Michael's sealed mono Zippo, which he bought on Record Store Day 2021. I bought my vinyl copy the same day, but I unsealed that copy, of course. Michael left his in the shrink, and I've kept it in the shrink. I'm going to leave it since there's really no need to unseal it. This is a K-Tel Various Artists compilation from the 1970s, from about 1973, I think, called Fantastic 22 Original Hits, or something like that. It included Crocodile Rock and Rocket Man. So it's an interesting little curio to add to my collection. And the other one is another Various Artists compilation from the 1970s, the late 70s, I would think. It must be, if it has Andy Gibb on the cover. And it included Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. There it is. Now, I can already see the next one is, it's a completely non-Elton offering. Michael knows that I love the Bee Gees, and this album, Trafalgar, is one of my top faves from their early 70s catalog. It's been one of my favorite Bee Gees albums since I was about 10 years old. This copy is an original Yellow Label US Atco. It was stickered as a club copy, but if I recall, this is actually a stock copy that was just stickered as a club copy. That's an incredible album. Okay, another non-Elton disc, but Elton related. This is China's 1977 LP, an MCA Rocket release. China featured Davy Johnstone, James Newton Howard, Roger Pope, and I forget who played bass, but he wasn't a former member of Elton's band. Whoever played the bass. I find the album sleeve design kind of annoying. Everything is flipped around and upside down. I can't quite remember why they did that. Maybe it'll be more obvious when I take the record out. The inner seems to be in decent shape. What a great label. That Rocket label is not one we tend to see on North American copies of Rocket releases. That's an MCA pressing ring too, so it was obviously pressed somewhere. I didn't think to check the runouts for Pinckneyville versus Gloversville Indicator, but it was pressed at MCA. Another copy of Friends. Okay, I have more Friends than Caribous now, I think. And it's a US Paramount copy and an early one with the original back panel design. The panel's not tipped, so it's not one of the very earliest copies I've seen, but it's early US Paramount. The 1974 reissues by ABC used a different typeface on the back panel. And this is yet another one of those copies where I'm not sure where it was pressed. It's one of those mystery pressings. And the pressing rings for all of those, I have 4 of these now, look very much like CBS pressing rings. I'm beginning to suspect that these may actually have been pressed at CBS in Santa Maria. That white label promo copy that I found in Amityville back in September, which I showed again in my last video, has the same pressing ring incidentally. Okay, now for the second bundle from this box. Remember, there's a second box after this, so we're not even halfway through here. And this is me unpacking it. I wonder why I left all this packing footage in the cut. This bundle appears to be slightly bigger than the last. And on the very top of this bundle, we can see is a copy of Jump Up, one of my favorite Elton albums of the 1980s, and right away I know it's a Geffen copy because it's not a gatefold sleeve. And it's not a Canadian Geffen either because the sleeve is not textured. The US Geffen sleeves were smooth. The inner sleeve's in great shape, and now this copy's lacquers were cut by Greg Fulginiti at Artisan Sound, and although its runouts have Sheffield Labs and Allied Records indicators in them, as it turns out this is a capital pressing from sometime between 86 and 88 and pressed on translucent Quiex. So I'm very happy to add that copy to my collection. Next is Breaking Hearts. You've seen this copy before. This was the copy that was still in its shrink, had the hype sticker and a price tag with a date code from July of 1984. And this copy was cut by Tim Young at CBS UK, plated by Sheffield Labs, and pressed at Allied Records in California. And that, I have found, is such a great combo for a lot of these mid-1980s Geffens. Tim Young on lacquers, Sheffield Labs on electroplating, and Allied on pressing duties. This copy is going to sound really, really good. I don't think I've actually played it yet, though. So many of these sat around for so long waiting to be cataloged, and some of them have been cleaned, some of them haven't, but I'm going to hopefully catch up on all of that over the holidays. All right, next is 21 at 33. Sleeves in great shape. I can tell it's a US copy because, well, it has MCA records in the back, but also it has a lyric insert. And take a listen to this. The US copies had a rigid laminated lyric insert, while the inserts in the Canadian and overseas Rocket copies were not laminated like that. That inscription I'm pointing to says, "Yes, son, and he's my dentist too," whatever the heck that is supposed to mean. And that inscription appeared in the runouts of all 3 MCA copies, Gloversville copies, Pinckneyville copies, and the Canadian copies too. Mastering for all 3, done at A&M Hollywood by the legendary Bernie Grundman. All right, don't shoot me. Another MCA pressing, I can tell by the sleeve, which looks like it's in great shape. And the booklet, I think, if I recall, the booklet is glued into the gatefold. So again, this may well turn out to be a Gloversville copy. The last one turned out to be a Black Rainbow CBS Terre Haute Club copy. I think the record is, it's the original solid black MCA label, so this copy dates from about early to mid-1973, and if I recall, this is indeed a Gloversville copy. Next up is Westies, an MCA copy, USMCA. Great album. Has the inner sleeve. I don't think I show it here, but it also has the lyric insert. Now I'm about to check the runouts for any initials, engineer initials, and where is it? There it is. I can see it from here, actually. Aaron. Okay, so this is an MCA copy, but from lacquers cut by Aaron Chakravorty in the UK. But it's an MCA Pinckneyville pressing, specifically. I already had a Pinckneyville copy in my collection, but it was cut by Brian Ingoldsby at Universal City. So now I have a Pinckneyville copy from each engineer. Captain Fantastic. This is a PRC Richmond contract pressing from the mid to late 1975. Pressed and also cut at PRC Richmond, so the runouts on this copy don't show Brian Inglesby's initials. I assume Michael purchased this copy from an American store, but these PRC contract copies were very prevalent up here in Canada. Our MCA plant in Cornwall pressed the earliest Canadian copies of Captain Fantastic, but then about 2 months after the album's release, the workers there went on strike and the plant eventually closed in early 1976. So it appears MCA kept up with the demand up here in Canada by importing these PRC Richmond contract copies, which again were obviously sold in the United States too. Next is Ice on Fire, Elton's flawed pop opus of the mid-1980s. The cover image is a spot varnish, so as is the back image. So I know that it's not a UK Rocket copy, it's a Geffen copy. Should be Black Label Geffen. There it is. Okay, and in the runouts show that this copy was cut by Greg Fulginiti at Artisan, electroplated and pressed by Specialty Records in Pennsylvania. This is my second U.S. Geffen Specialty Records pressing, but my other Specialty copy was not plated by Specialty, but instead by Sheffield Labs. So it'll be interesting to compare the sound of those two copies and see whether the plating made much difference. Single Man. When I saw the sleeve, I thought it'd be a Monarch pressing because all the Monarch copies I've seen have those very high gloss sleeves with the dark gray spines. That is until now, because this is... well, it's US Tan and Beige, MCA, and I can't remember if I pointed out here, but it is actually a Pinckneyville pressing, cut by Larry Bowden at MCA Universal. So I have many MCA copies, but that's my first MCA Pinckneyville copy. Leather Jackets. Now, I'll tell you right away, because I remember it well, this turned out to be an original Canadian Geffen Black Label copy pressed at Cinram in Scarborough. Now, I already had one of those, which is fine, but I really wasn't expecting to get a Canadian copy from Michael. Michael didn't even realize until I told him that the copy he sent me was a Canadian copy. Now, yeah, there's the Black Label. And that's the Cinram pressing ring, and that's the I don't know why I bother zooming in for these little edits here, because you can't see, because I'm shooting with a bad camera, but that was the Cinram runout indicator. All right, Blue Moves, an original 1976 MCA Rocket hybrid copy in great condition. This is a Gloversville pressing specifically, which I didn't have already. My original Canadian copy was pressed from Gloversville stampers, or at least derived from Gloversville metalwork, but pressed in Canada at Keel Manufacturing in Ajax. I didn't see or hear a US MCA copy for the first time until just last year when I got a Pinckneyville copy. So now I have one of each of the three original North American copies out there to get, Gloversville, Pinckneyville, and the Canadian ones. Next, another copy of the Fox. I knew right away that it was a German Rocket copy. Those German sleeves are a very specific shade, a very light shade, and have a laminate. So this was cut, plated, and pressed at Polygram in Hanover, and has the 320 code marked in the runouts. And I already have one of these, but I'm happy to have a second one. This copy's in very good shape. All right, Greatest Hits. Now, if I recall, this turned out to be a US MCA Gloversville pressing. Not sure of the date. Pretty sure it's an original 74-75 Gloversville copy. My other US Gloversville copy was cut by Brian Inglesby, but this copy doesn't show his initials in the runouts. In fact, there were no engineer initials in this copy's runouts, but it is an MCA pressing ring, and the matrices are in MCA style scribing. So I feel certain that the lacquers for this one were at least cut at the MCA studios in Universal City. Okay, second box. Again, this footage is from July of this year, so, 5-6 months ago. And yeah, thank you, Matt. Box number 2. I was still using my old and somewhat dull utility knife, purchased from Canadian Tire Hardware in Cornwall, Ontario, sometime in the late 1980s. It was my father's knife, and he was going to throw it away. This was about 20 years ago. He's going to throw it away, and being a sentimentalist, I rescued it from the garbage bin because I remember him using it so much around the house when I was a kid, and I'm a sentimentalist. I didn't want to see it go to a landfill. Again, Michael expertly packed these boxes, which I very much appreciated. So I'm just removing the overpacking here, and I think in this box, yeah, we have one bundle of vinyl. These are 12-inch singles. And then the next bundle there, those are books. And I'll show everything in this video, don't worry. So I can see through the wrapping already. Yeah, the first disc on this pile is an MCA, looks like an MCA 12-inch of I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That from 1988. In great shape. Can't remember if I take the records out for these 12-inch singles or not. Yeah, I do. I don't remember which MCA plant pressed this. It is a US copy, not a Canadian copy. The interesting thing about all the North American MCA copies was that they were cut direct metal, so they should have the DMM indicator in the runouts. Next is a German 12-inch single from 1981 on DJM, and those are the 3 Lennon tracks, which DJM released just a few months after Lennon's death. And those are the 1981 mixes. The next one is another non-Elton edition. Michael knows that I love Fleetwood Mac, and that's the Little Eyes 12-inch from the late 1980s, which I used to have all the Canadian 12-inches from the Tango album, but I got rid of them, so I'm happy to have that back. Act of War, that's a UK Rocket 12-inch single, Rocket, yeah. And a viewer recently requested that I do an episode about all the different parts of Act of War. And that would be a challenge for me in many ways. I'm not a big fan of that song, and I don't have all the parts yet, but it's not a bad idea, so I've added it to my list of possible episodes to do for this winter. Cold as Christmas, UK 12-inch single with Crystal and Je veux de la tendresse, which is the French language version of Nobody Wins, on the B-side. Great artwork on that too. Who Wears These Shoes, UK 12-inch single. A lot of these UK 12-inch singles were cut by Tim Young, but they were cut so hot and so loud that they really give my speakers a real beating. So I rarely, if ever, play them. This is another one where I already had a copy of this. I remember the first copy of this UK 12-inch I got in Houston, Texas. And I haven't double-checked, but I'm pretty sure that copy has a glossy cover and that copy has a very matte cover. Okay, so Nikita, UK 12-inch single with The Man Who Never Died, and then on the B-side, yeah, okay, this is the one where it says that both these tracks were recorded at Wembley Stadium in 1984, but that's only true of I'm Still Standing. The version of Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word on that 12-inch, and this was a mistake that got repeated on the 1998 Classic Years reissue of the Ice on Fire album. That version of Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word is from the Rainbow Theatre performance of May 1977. So that was a bit of a mistake, but it's nice to have that performance. This is a US Geffen 12-inch promotional single. This was never sold in stores. I already had a copy of this, but I'm actually very happy to have a second one because it's so good. Basically, you get an extended version of Nobody Wins, and on the A side is the English language version, and on the flip side is the French language version. And it's a really, really great remix. I know that Nobody Wins tends to be a song where fans either really love it or they really don't like it because it's really so out of style with a lot of the other stuff Elton was doing at that time. But I think it's a great track, and that extended version, again, which has never been released on CD, that promo 12-inch is the only place to get it. This is a UK 12-inch single, still sealed, and I won't unseal it. I think I'm going to leave it. I just love that hype sticker. This has various remixes of Made in England, which I have on the CD singles anyway. It also has that 10.5, almost 11-minute remix of Believe by Scott Hardkiss, which I have on CD, but that's such a great remix. And again, I love that Union Jack sticker. Yeah, I know that I usually take shrink wrap off, but that's another one I'm going to leave it on. Sad Song Say So Much, UK Rocket 12-inch single. It's not a remix, by the way. It's just that the 7-inch version was edited, and what you get on this 12-inch version, I'm pretty sure, if I get this wrong, I'm sure someone will correct me, the 12-inch version is actually just the album version. This is a booklet from an MCA Black Rainbow copy of Tumbleweed Connection. And he just included it in case I needed an extra one, and as it happened, I did. I had a copy of that, a Black Rainbow that needed a booklet, so that's great. 2 copies of the UK Rocket 12-inch single for Slow Rivers from the Leather Jackets album. That's a beautiful song. was actually an outtake from the Ice on Fire album. You get those singles, though, for the 2 B-sides. Billy and the Kids and Lord of the Flies are just such great songs. This is a UK epic copy of Flames of Paradise, which was actually a Jennifer Rush song from her album that year, and Elton was just sort of as a guest spot duet. I think it's been about 25 years since I've heard that song. I have the North American 12-inch for that, so now I have an overseas copy. All right, so this is the second bundle I'm undoing here, and this is the one that has books and other paper items in it. So the vinyl part of this video is over. All right, so this first one, this is, do you remember the Freddie Mercury tribute concert? It aired on North American television after he passed. Anyway, that's the piano music book for that concert. This is the copy of The Peacock Party, a book by Alan Aldridge. Alan Aldridge, of course, is the artist who did the amazing sleeve art for the Captain Fantastic album and the lyrics and scrap booklets, and he also contributed a lot to that book published in 1976. The one who writes the words for Elton John, and he contributed a lot of illustrations to that as well. So you can tell that's Aldridge's art. Very distinctive style. All right. This is a book about Elton John, published in the UK in 1974. There are 2 authors for this book. I forget. It doesn't have its cover, so I forget who the other author was, but I know one of the authors is Tony Jasper. I used to have a copy of this, but I parted with it about almost 25 years ago, and it was, I think, one of the first extensively illustrated books about Elton John to hit the market. Previous to this, there were like little paperbacks you could get, but that's the first one with lots of illustrations. Share. This is a share item. This is a Sanctuary mail order catalog. If you're wondering, if you're laughing, yeah. Okay, so what the hell is this? This is after Cher's peak as a solo artist in the late 1980s and early 90s, but before her Believe comeback of the late 90s, Cher did this. I don't know if she was just endorsing this company or this was a business that she actually owned herself, and the business was called Sanctuary, and Sanctuary apparently wanted to cash in on the growing popularity of the Medieval Times dinner theater chain, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it was a mail-order business that sold home decor and items of clothing that fit that sort of Medieval Times aesthetic. And I must say, it all kind of seems strange, maybe even bizarre. Apparently, this company, Sanctuary, began in 1994 and survived into 1995, but did not run a full second year. And there was only one catalog, but there's 2 versions of that catalog. There's a 1994 version and a 95 edition that's easier to find. And this is actually the early one, so that's great, I think. I'm not a big Cher fan, so maybe one day I'll pass this on to a Cher fan. Anyway, as usual, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and or learned anything new, please click the like button. My videos depend on that. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. My channel depends on it. And as usual, thank you to those of you who have already subscribed. More to come, and I'll see you all again very soon.